Amortal Kombat, No UFOs by Angus Carlyle from CCRU's Abstract Culture Swarm Number 2. This text from CCRU.net. Round 1. In the blue corner, Western Bodily Organization, WBO, a mail-ordering physiognomic force field that shudders to maximum density in that other WBO, which is its abstract machine, the World Boxing Organization. Caught in the pull and tug of the WO's disciplinary tractor beam, the male body is dragged through an ultramagnetic origami of serial foldings, bent double in street scuffles, pulled upright again in sweat-soaked subterranean gyms, in road running, in amateur bouts until, eventually, buckled under the weights and bells of the prize fights, it emerges. The WBO. Muscles have been dangerously dehydrated, then ripped, skin torn and stretched, bones repeatedly broken and reset. Organs are lifted and separated. Bruised, battered, and scarred, but hard, a molar organism raises its aching right arm aloft in obedience to the judgments of God. A body built around a pulsating command center that Joe Louis called heart and mind, and fortified by metallic musculature of cold-forged character armor. Duel of the Iron Mike and 2-ton Tony Galento, battling for golden gloves. Sporting double-edged adamantium shells that both ruthlessly isolate the male body in its lonely being. Seconds out, you're going solo like Tyson below, and rigorously obliterate any stirring becomings that could engineer a shift onto the plane of intensity that is Deleuze and Guattari's body without organs. The BWO. For becoming does occasionally threaten to KO the WBO, but there can be no boxer rebellion, and any attempt to get on the plane is battered into submission. The heavyweight fighter Lou Nova rearranged his motor systems through chi power-ups, macrobiotic diets, and yogic meditation in order to deliver a cosmic punch, but he was smashed down to meet Earth's intolerant corporal reality principle by a punishing Joe Louis's right hook. Muhammad Ali's famous shuffle, too, came close to achieving a drum and bass synchronicity of speed and slowness, to achieving a motion-blurred transversality that would escape the sedimentary carbon plating of the WBO and enter the nomadic silicone planing of the BWO. But the fluid circulation of these effects was cruelly Hoover dammed, and the incipient flows turned back to clay. And Ali's attempted unnatural participation in the becoming animal were similarly blocked before they could precipitate a takeoff of the plane of consistency. Like a butterfly, like a bee, there is always a danger of finding yourself playing the animal, playing Oedipal domesticity. George Foreman, the mummy. Sonny Liston, the bear. Playing at imitation and analogy. Becoming's animal continually run these dangers. You can rope-a-dope as much as you like, but the WBO will wear you down, ring you in, then ring you out, for the count. But blocking the plane to the BWO is not the WBO's only danger. Beyond the WBO's disciplinary corporal reality principle, squatted gloating toe stripe or death drive, obscenely beckoning with promises of neuronal shearing, vascular disruption, the neuropathology of dementia pugilistica, and death itself. Boxer Arthur Craven might have survived a shuddering first round Jack Johnson southpaw to the jaw, and might have fervently embraced Dada, but the toad still got him, breaking the placid surface of the Caribbean Sea to upend his lonely rowing boat. Perhaps the primary zone of destruction targeted by WBO offers a clue to its secret. The WBO is a front organization for Mind Inc., a shady outfit run by Rene Cherry-Nose Descartes, operating out of Holland. The WBO butchers its subjects into Cartesian head cases for which the body is just so much remote-controlled meat to be bruised, battered, and scarred. Max Schmeling, Hitler's head-up boxer, was exemplary. His body was a WBO's pawn trying to check the plane to the BWO. Round 2. Bruce Lee was also a chess player, but he nearly avoided being checked. For him, Tong Ti, Wado Ru, Taekwondo, Shaolin, Chun Fa, Shri Ta, Kung Fu, Jiu-Jitsu, Karate, even Filipino Eskrima, and Southern Indian Salambam and Kalaripayat were no different from WBO boxing. All solidify the fluid, all arrest the flux of the BWO, all promote the blind devotion to the systematic uselessness of routines that lead nowhere. What was required was a formlessness to assume all forms, no style to fit with all styles. What was required was a rhizomatic openness which could turn the sedimentary closures of WBO against itself, to be like water, to penetrate and destroy rock. Shimmering in shattered glass, smashing the mirrored cage, free of traitorous sing of subjectification, and free of treacherous of signification, no form, no meaning, no sing no choking WBO, only the cloaking imperceptibility of formlessness and meaninglessness that announces the BWO. Bruce Lee, like Deleuze's dancer, already a sleepwalker, who will be taken over by the movement that seems to summon him. But Bruce Lee awoke too soon, and in resisting the somnambulant intensity of the BWO, stumbled back into the WBO and all its dangers. Perhaps it was Hegel bellowing in his ear that awoke him. After hammering out philosophy master papers on the phenomenology of spirit and the science of logic on his battered typewriter, Lee wiped the sleep of becoming's animal from his eyes. Exit the little dragon and enter instead, Lee demanding his students be merely like a leopard, that they simply emulate the beauty of a crane and of the ferocity of a tiger. There is always a danger of finding yourself playing an animal. Fully alert now, instead of accelerating the practice of Mushin or no mind to escape velocity, he insisted that the body always follow the mind, that Jeet Kune Do was an excellent discipline for the mind. The external, dermal discipline of boxing was effortlessly replaced by the internal chi control of JKD. Disciplinary man produced energy in discrete amounts, while control man undulates, moving among a continuous range of different orbits. The body is your lobster. The rows of mirrors are now shattered in order to avoid multiplicity, to leave the mindful individual alone with Yeet Man at the chessboard, alone with the push-ups and the training, alone with the gallery of sepia Oedipuses, the frame fathers, the Sifus, senseis, Asan, the masters, alone with his opponent in a game of death. The Mortal Kombat begins. In a desperate flurry of moves, wrenched from the Jeet Kune Do grab bag, Lee attempts to force the WBO back and get onto the plane of the BWO. The special technique of shadow boxing, nerve destruction grips drawn from Kali, 2 kicks to the knees from Southern Wing Chun, an elbow to the groin from Ba Coupe, rabbit punches to the neck, tiger claws raking the face, tossing bombs from Taekwondo to the kidneys. An exhausted Kia, and his energy is spent. But JKD now has its own form, its own meaning, its own rigidity. The fist of fury is intercepted. The mirrors are now broken, Pat Qua charms, broken and unable to protect Lee from the forces of the WBO. A taste of blood from his fingertips, the big boss WBO beckons. Electric flashes as a physiognomic force field fluctuates, then forces its disruptive energy. Lee, like Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu, tears back the tapestry of Tao to reveal death staring back in the mirror of morality and mortality. Round 3. The year 2002, and the battle's still Wu. But now it's Amortal Kombat, a mindless detrimentalism engineered in the arcade and the dance hall. Intensity achieved not by localizing at the origin of an effort that characterizes the organism, WBO, but by dissolving into the middle, that is the virtual. Virtual fighter materializes on the plane of consistency. Who dares challenge the mighty Goro? Goro, Prince of Pain, and the final guardian of the WBO. Tearing at the joystick, rattling the keys, adrenalized, libidinized, and mediating. Becoming elemental with Sub-Zero's ninja ice field, with Hydro's illogical water, with Thunder God Raiden's cracking lightning. With wind and rain, becoming mineral with demon sorcerer Shang Tsung, and kicking like Kano, the Black Dragon's most deadly assassin, becoming imperceptible with Reptile, and becoming invulnerable with Scorpion, specialize in interstices, and enter the zone, the BWO. It is not surprising that the plateau of continuous imminence that is drum and bass conjugates with Amortal Kombat in its dismantling of the organism's strata. Big up your chest, wind up your waist, limb by limb, the WBO is mashed up. The European corporal reality principle disorganized and detrimentalized. Here comes the nice and easy tiger style, snake style, the crane. Not Ali's shuffle, but the hard step, 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 stepper. Keep moving, never stop moving. Motionless voyage, designification, desubjectification, detrimentalism, groove riding. Breath comes quicker, head nodding with a bass line that hasn't arrived yet. And imperceptible movement, neck-driven, wind-assisted. Body popping, break-dancing, beyond the judgments of God, and on the BWO. Choose the sword or choose the ball. Amortal Kombat diagonalized between the WBO's double strata bind of a vertical antibody that butchers the meat for the mind, and a horizontal armoring that folds and forges the body in an origami of disintensification. Amortal Kombat, detrimentalist groove riding. No UFOs. Quote, UFOs are a big part of dance culture. UFOs and dance music are connected in a cosmic sense. To think that we are the only life form in the universe is ridiculous. I'd say it was encouraging to think there is something out there to guide us through all this shit we're facing. End quote. From Simon Gari, Blue Room Released Records. Quote, all this UFO abduction stuff is nothing to do with me. I don't go with that. I don't believe that people visit this planet at all. I am operating on the idea that we are completely on our own. For me, that is much darker and more exciting. End quote from Nico, No U-Turn Records. Yet aliens are being bought by the mothership load. Frenzied consumption has accelerated the schwa image to geosynchronous commodity ubiquity. Here are clothing companies Mashiko Koshino, Pose, Daniel Poole, and Liquid Sky competing to turn out the most gray-related streetwear. The perfect fashionable accompaniment. An Alien Workshop skateboard, complete with the appropriate logo. Here, on the newsagent's top shelf, are arranged the relevant reading matter. Encounters, X Factor, sightings, UFO, and spirit. Here, too, is mainstream marketing effortlessly exploiting communion imagery to boost beer, car, mortgage, and detector and mobile phone sales. And here's Bill Barker, proud owner of the schwa copyright, accessorizing with alien invasion survival cards, xenon-coded lost time detectors, and a neat line in Union archetypal analysis. On schwa's website, Barker, his very name semantically redolent with a carny, and phonetically resonant with the uber huckster Colonel Tom, energetically promotes a forthcoming techno compilation. This last is a shrewd commercial move, for one of the most vibrant markets for aliens has been established among the consumers of techno, or more precisely, of trance. Taking their referential cues from the Orb's Prague House Excursion, Blue Room, and Little Green Men's take on the Close Encounters theme, a whole slew of UFO-onic sonic product has beamed down, materializing on gray packaged vinyl like the popular 3 volumes of Space Techno, and on the output of trance labels Blue Room Released, or Agonico, with its flying saucer logo, leaving telltale carbon burns at venues like Edinburgh's Beam Me Up, Salisbury's UFO Club, or London's famous Club Alien, abducting trance spotters on dance floors across Europe, the States, and in isolated outposts like Goa. The excellent dance magazine Eternity even has a regular column devoted to UFOlogy, such as the level of symbolic saturation that Greys are ridiculed in music's EBD cartoon, and one Brighton club has adopted a no lost at trancers, no schwa heads policy. The appropriation of communion alien imagery is hyped as fast-forward thinking, as an attempt to escape the tractor beam of present-day Death Star secularism and engage the warped drive of millennial and extraplanetary future. However, if drum and bass can be conjugated with the anti-gravitational zones of intensity that emerge as Afrofuturism, then Alien Trance coordinates a dissipative, landlocked territory that must be mapped as Anglo-retroism. This retroism runs its social software through 4 primary programs. Program 1, the infantilism of loving the alien. This is not a reference to Old Mother Ron Hubbard's nursery rhymes, the bare cupboard juvenilia of Dianetics, and the tales of off-worlders accessible only to Scientology's elite operating thetans. You know about the Logos group. Yes, we know the front men and women of this organization, but they are no more than that, a facade. The operators are not there. Nor is the infantilism that is being attributed to parading to Gray a reference to one of America's most successful UFO cults, led as it was by 2 individuals who took the names Bo and Peep. No, the infantilism refers to a still controversial explanation of close encounters of the third kind, CE3s, in terms of the revivification of peri- and postnatal memories. The good Dr. Alvin H. Lawson empties his pipe noisily against a California State University commemorative ashtray and draws a deep breath, this being a well-rehearsed spiel, one he's used to delivering to hostile audiences. He begins at a rush, the words tumbling over each other as he asserts that, while still clinically unsubstantiated, it would seem reasonable to speculate that, from tactile self-exploration, fetuses develop a distinct impression of their body, and that, further, this impression, like those during the birth process itself, acquires the status of a memory accessible in later life. Realizing that he is proceeding too rapidly, Lawson measures his pace, and begins a catalog of what, with a wink, he describes as surprising parallels which, his confidence suggests, will leave us in no doubt about the connection between CI3s and infantilism. The dominant creature type reported, familiar to readers of Communion or Betty Anderson's autobiography, or recent Trans Club flyers, bears remarkable resemblance to the 6-month-old human fetus. Diminutive size, frail, disproportionately large head, comparatively large eyes, webbed fingers and toes, pallid skin color, hairless, arms longer than legs. Unsylveter curtails the doctor with another of his winks, which are by now beginning to irritate. And then there are the craft themselves, he continues, unfolding a pen and ink, drawing from a wallet drawn from his frayed tweed jacket pocket. The traditional UFO is surprisingly parallel, again the wink, to the typical arrangement of the umbilical cord dangling from the placenta. As for the tunnels and tubes, there are current abductees' reports of the interior of the alien vessel to such an extent that the hypnotist must distract the subject in order to prevent them from devoting all energies to their discussion. Well, these tunnels are, according to Lawson, simply revivals of memories of the cervix in its dilation. The time loss which accompanies the experiences of abduction, announces Lawson, with the flamboyant air of a conjurer saving his best trick for last, can be accounted for as traumatic remembering of the amnesiac effects of the hormone oxytocin, which floods the womb as it initiates contractions. Lawson, sensing he has a convert on his hands, turns to the whiteboard in an agitated manner, full of analogies between UFO abductions and Amerindian shamanic trances. As his voice drones in the background, punctuated by the squeak of his felt tip, connections begin to coalesce between the nodes of birth memory amnesia, the hypnotic techniques purportedly employed by the Greys on their abductees, the use of relaxed recall sessions by counselors to unearth repressed memories. Connections between these and the supposedly mesmeric quality of trance music, embracing its dancers in its amniotic flows in the wombic embrace of clubs, like Return to the Source. Psychology returns us inevitably to our fetal condition, sleeping gently in the womb. But it's been one wink too many, and we have to turn to the second programmatic retroism installed by alien trance. As we are departing, Lawson manages to squeeze in one final remark. The birth memory hypothesis proposes that revivification is propelled by trauma, not trauma incurred in a CE3, but the trauma incurred in confronting the specter of fearful uncertainty. It is this uncertainty which haunts the remaining programs. Retro Program 2, what Marx called rural idiocy, is introduced by the evidence that CE3s and UFOs are mostly prevalent in rural areas. Is it accidental that both Billy Barker of Schwa and Whitley Strieber, author of Communion, have made much of their respective deliberate decisions to leave behind the city? I'm originally from Los Angeles. I got fed up with living in a huge city and came out to a small town. I like it very much. Lots of desert. In parallel, there's more than a whiff of back-to-nature anti-urbanism in Trance's contemporary configuration. Full moon parties in the desert or on the downs, miles away from the friction assumed to characterize the metropolis. Distant, too, from the neon lights and sodium glow that, according to an anecdote in Douglas Rushkoff's Siberia, some trancers believe will disorientate the landing instruments of passing saucers. It is perhaps the Goa of the trans-tourist Orientalist imaginary which most embodies this past-longing pastoralism. The escapist, city-shunning return to the country is a logical accompaniment to out-of-it transcendence pursued by a focused, bass-deprived, resolutely head music with its falsetto TB-303 sweeps, designed, according to one of its producers, to take your mind off into a dream. Evident here is a nostalgia or a yearning to float free in a liquid world of non-linear time. Such a bucolic nostalgia marks a strong contrast with drum-and-based urbanist futurism. No flight from the city there, but the lines of flight engineered in the anarchitectural remix of the urban shakedown. At this moment, a guy called Henry Letts bursts into the room, spilling words and ideas. Cyborgs crossing the Westway into Hammersmith. Council Estate kids wired for electronic revolutions. The need for new fibers, new networks. The city accelerated biogeographically in the pneumatic precipitation of diagonal intensities that is a seismic shock delivered at high velocity by in-car stereo systems and cranked-up headphones. Not the arid California desert or some desolate field in Oxfordshire, nor the city as terror incognito of the pastoralist imagination, but the city as concretized jungle infested with potent potentialities. Rather than being the ultimate other, as suggested in Schwa's website, it is the determinately humanoid form attributed to the ETs around which the third programmatic retroism revolves. In the definitional scaling down necessitated by popularization and commodification of the grays, some of the pixel sharpness of the original reports may have been blurred, but even in the high-res versions, the details of leathery skin or the occasional genital ambiguity cannot disguise the rigorously anthropomorphous non-perversity in operation. Bubble-headed star children as a secret exposed at the end of the galaxy. None of the unsettling inhuman becoming of an acephalous predator avatar shimmering in the unceasing mobility of a chameleon field. Its purpose is forever enigmatic, just identification with the human, the dinosaur trap in the tar pit of history. And it's not just identity with the human at work, and the being gray that perks in trans culture, but identity with its most Jurassic manifestation, the white male. Quote, a broad face with white cheeks, a chalk face with eyes cut in for a black hole, clown head, moon white mime, holy shroud. End quote, by Deleuze and Guattari. The schwa face, what a horror. Quote, or take the face. We think faces have to be made, and not all societies have to make faces, but some need to. In what situations does this happen, and why? End quote from Deleuze. Not only is Gilles Deleuze and Felix Guattari's contention that attachment to the white wall, black hole system of the face constitutes an additional form of infantilism, but further, that the system itself has operated for 2 millennia as a racist apparatus of signification and subjection. If the face is in fact Christ, in other words, your average ordinary white man, then the first deviances are racial. They must be Christianized, in other words, facialized, European racism. A recent cover of Eternity graphically dramatized the Shoah-Christ Holy Alliance with Jesus and discipled Greys in robe communion. As drum and bass's facelessness engineers impersonal and experimental probe heads, we locate trance's typical visage, face 2 gray, the Cali smiley, marked out by ratty beards, UV-sensitive paints, and moored down by reterritorializing piercings, arms aloft in cruciform appeal to the heavens, with surreptitious silicone switching threatening to eclipse the carbon-based life form, and its white male form already occluded in the future's moving shadow. Being abducted by the comfortingly humanoid schwa must appear a path out of the post-human penumbra. Down this path, scuttling along the footsteps of the human, comes alien trance infantilism's 4th programmatic retroism. The nostalgia for control, purpose, meaning, and destiny. Oh, is this the way they say the future's meant to feel? Or is it just 20,000 people standing in a field? And tell me when the spaceship lands, 'cause all this has got to mean something. Cocker wheedles and sorted for ease and whiz. Trance's hypnosis precisely promises meaning something in the juridic delivery of transcendence, and the return of meaningful projects, and the possibility of control. These eschatological and Aquarian pretensions of trance, currently being proselytized as therapeutic technologies by the latest counselor gurus, joshing their patients with shamanic dancing's primal healing qualities, sit down easily next to the Schwa mythos and its investment in the bankrupt notion that there can still be plans directed from above, whether that is the above of the orbiting saucers, piloted by aliens or Aryans, or of the secret Area 51, or of the deep inside the Cartesian head case. Are we ready for global contact with ETs, or even ultra-dimensional beings? Frankly, I can't answer that question, but I can say that there is a process, and central to that process is what we choose for ourselves as individuals. The rest follows naturally. In the nostalgia for control and purpose, another bond in the Shoah-Christ Holy Alliance is revealed. The alien Messiah serves to resolve these problems, at least imaginatively, to replace despair with hope and purpose, to provide resolution in a world where solution seems impossible, meaningless lives find meaning, old men are granted immortality, a boy gains a friend, a grief-stricken widow is consoled, nuclear war is avoided. Underlying the motif of the alien Messiah is the mythos of the Christian Messiah. Anglo-retroism programs aggressive trance infantilism against the sub-base materialism of Afrofuturism, rural idiocy against inner-city A life, the Christianized visage made to gray against imperceptible facelessness, conspiracies and meaningful plans against the imminent potentialities of dread out of control. Brand Schwa, your retro, Trans Europe Express. You've been derailed by snow crash. No UFOs.